Man, oh man, I can't believe it's been 8 years since I saw you in New
Yeah,
York.
I know.
Thank.
Such a weird thing. Way time flies. So
It really is. Well, I was glad that you
yeah,
reached out. In fact, that was because of Facebook. You saw I was in New York and you were too.
yeah,
Totally
yeah.
happened by accident.
Yeah, completely. So
Well,
that's
great to sit down and chat with you for a while. I
oh, I'm glad to do it.
such great memories about our tour together in
Oh yeah,
'84 to
yeah,
Russia, Romania, and Bulgaria. That
right.
that was quite an intense trip.
Oh, it was.
So
There's so many stories out of that trip that I still tell.
really.
Oh yeah,
Well, I want you to talk about that because you've gone back to Russia since then. So I want to talk about that, but talk a little bit about just your Continental experience in general. How does your Continental experience show up in what you're doing now, and tell us what you're doing.
yeah. So I left Continentals. Gosh, 1990 was the last tour that I did, and I went. I remember leaving. The director's kind of uh, rehash session at the end, the review, and I went straight to seminary. I started seminary
Wow.
and in Louisville, Kentucky, and so I did that, and then I did a chaplain residency and at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation,
Hmm.
and have really worked in chaplaincy and then pastoral ministry since then.
Hmm.
Um, I served about 18 years in a local congregation as a local church pastor, and now I'm working at a Catholic hospital here in Huntington, where I live. It's a 400 bed hospital, and I'm director of spiritual care and mission integration. And
Wow.
man, I tell you what, it's funny. My kids make fun of me because I say back when I was with Continentals all the time.
That's awesome.
And they always say, "Well, I haven't heard that in a while, Dad. You know, tell us something." But I was thinking about this today, um, just how much leadership for me has been about relationships,
Hmm.
um, and knowing that when we can have in a group of people, when we can have this understanding of we're all in the same thing together, and we're all moving in the same direction, and that just comes by listening, by sharing time with folks. And I think one of the things that I took away from my Continental experience was that whole idea that, you know, this tour that we had, these individuals that were a part of this tour, we had a common purpose and a common theme. And that if we kept our focus on that, then things began to run smooth. It's when we lost that focus that things really began to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so part of what I'm doing in mission work right now is is simply helping people to remember what our mission is, what our values are, how the sisters have lived those out in the past, and then how we can live those out today. And so that it's all about getting people on the same page, having relationships with folks.
I mean, I threw out Russia there.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
went back, which I didn't know until you and I met up in New York, and I'm so glad you reached out. It's one of the benefits of Facebook. You can
yeah.
bump into people. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so in part of the work that I did in the local church was just through mission. And I think that's another piece that has popped up always with Continentals. The world became a lot smaller to me.
Hmm.
And the opportunities that I had to invest in other locations and other people around the world. And again, about relationships. And so I was working for our state denomination doing mission support and raising mission dollars. But I always felt like one of the ways we energize people on mission is to take them and let them see firsthand mission,
Yeah.
and then
Yep.
to be able to come back. And so we did a trip. I took 5 pastors with me in 2001, and we went to Moscow and then to a town called Ryazan in Russia. It's about 4 hours southeast of Moscow.
Hmm.
And we went to Ukraine, and met with local leadership there in the Baptist church. And we ended up forming a partnership with this group of pastors from Ryazan, Russia.
Hmm.
It's a area about the size of West Virginia where I live, and there were 7 churches in that area, and 7 Baptist churches at that time. And so we began to work with them, and we did a lot of leadership development with them, and we built relationship. We've done some economic development that I had a report on last night that's actually still going on. 23 years. We got a grant to do some economic development, and those loans have turned over several times now.
Wow.
And supporting the local church, supporting, the people in the church with good paying jobs, and so I did that. I made another 14 trips to Russia back and forth, and
Wow.
we would bring them here, we would go there, participate in mission kind of activities, but I preached all over that area, that region, and just a great opportunity to continue that work, and to be a part of the growth of that work. We helped to start 2 churches and supported pastoral development.
Right.
And again, I mean, coming up through the Continental organization, I saw the investment that was made in me. And so a part of the leadership piece that I've learned is that we have to invest in those people that are around us and believe in them and believe that that God's going to do a work through them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you toured a couple times and then with me as an assistant
Right.
and
Right.
directed. How many tours did you actually direct?
I directed 9 tours
Wow.
total.
Wow.
And I started, my first tour was the British Continentals.
Huh.
And I think you started with the British Continentals too,
I
didn't
was
you?
about the third director, I think, of the
Yeah.
group. Yeah.
Well, I guess the caveat I always throw in is that was the first year we had a live band.
Oh,
Um, and because they had used tracks before that. But
yeah.
yeah, that was one of my takeaways is that, and my kids don't believe this, but I had to teach all the choreography. Which is, I've got 2 left feet when it comes to that kind of stuff.
That's
So,
great.
but yeah, 85 did the British Continentals. I went back to England in the spring of 86, and we did a kind of an international group. We had people from Holland and Denmark in our group, and we traveled to those areas,
Right.
and then did stateside groups and traveled all different places. I was able to go back to Romania and Bulgaria and Yugoslavia, in one of those tours. And
Wow.
um, yeah, I never made it to Africa. I always tell, I've got some great friends now from Tanzania, and like I said, I've never been to Africa. That's the one place I never made it
Yeah.
around the world. So
Wow. It was crazy. I was in Cluj in northern Romania with
oh yeah.
him and one of his boys with Ridge, and we went for the 20th anniversary of the Romanian Continentals.
Oh wow.
And I asked around a little bit. I told them some of the cities that you and I and Mike Harcrow and I
Right.
had gone to, and they remembered adults, their parents and stuff talking about those concerts and that visit.
Yeah.
And now here we have so many groups out of Romania. It's just
Oh,
mind-blowing to me.
and
So
the rawness of those concerts. And we had just horns with us, no piano, maybe a
yeah,
guitar, and we
yeah,
did everything a cappella. I mean, it
yeah.
was incredible. Yeah.
It really was
Yeah.
crazy. Um,
Yeah.
Talk about principles a little bit. You touched on some in terms of leadership, but what are some takeaway nuggets in your hip pocket from your Continental experience that really made a difference for you?
I remember having a conversation with the late Jim Custer.
Mm.
And Jim told me something that I will never forget, and I've told countless people, is that as a leader, people will follow you. So you've got to be going somewhere.
Mm.
And then he said, the other thing he told me is, he said, they will mimic your behavior, and they'll pick up your bad habits first and then your good habits. But that whole idea of that you're leading someone,
Mhm.
and that we have to have direction as leaders. And the Proverbs says, without vision, a people perish, and we've got to have that vision for where we're taking people. And if that's in their relationship with Christ, if it's in a common purpose that we have as individuals or as a group, that's what we as leaders really have to have some direction that we're heading. Because I think a wandering leader, they're not leading, they're just following the pack or following something else. So
Right.
again, I think it says we are leading, and we have to stand up and be that voice that people follow. The other piece principle for me is, and maybe uh, I guess it's we can talk about it. It's discipleship. It's that relationship we have with Christ. And everything that I have ever ventured into, everything that I've experienced in my life has really been around this whole idea of what in that is my relationship with Christ like.
Hmm.
And there have been times that it's not been great, and there have been times when it's been phenomenal. And that whole idea that discipleship, again, is a process that we go through. I'm not going to be perfect today. I don't expect everyone that works for me to be perfect today, but I expect them, to be in this spot where they are ready to learn and grow.
Right.
And so, as a leader, I think the principles of discipleship have been so elementary for me. I've taught them in the church. I taught them even in what I do now. It's such small principles of discipleship to say, here's an idea that you can take and live out in your life.
That's
It's been a part of who I am, and from the very beginning.
yeah.
And I think that's another piece. Take your passion and run with it.
Hmm.
Um, my passion, I had a passion for music, but I think my passion for discipleship and for the growth and being involved in people's lives
Right.
in that way really took off, because I didn't see myself I didn't know what that future would be. My dad was a pastor, so I kind of watched him do that.
Right.
Um, and really the chaplaincy ministry is one that I love. And, and so I kind of went that direction, but I never left my music. It's always been there with me.
Have you ever wished you could gift your life-changing Continental experience to someone else? Well, you can. Your monthly giving can make a huge impact for our teams all over the world. Did you know that this year, we'll have more than 20 Continental groups on the road, communicating in 7 different languages? The Continental story goes on, so keep writing your part of it by being on our support team. And our groups will say, thank you, in 7 different languages.